it's not about just having cool tech. Cool tech is cool. You might get a few tips here and there about equipment that you maybe didn't think about, but it's quite interesting to have.
Sip, sip, sip.
I gotta tell you, have a beer. Maybe two. This is going to be a fantastic podcast episode. Let's go. Welcome to episode 41 of Bonding and Beer. My name is Rolando Nuñez, your host for this here podcast. And today's episode is essential equipment every dentist needs to run an efficient practice. Let's go. So what has Rolando been up to? Well, I don't know if I have mentioned this, but my wife, her name is Adriana, and she is a dentist who went to school in another country, in Venezuela, where we are originally from, and she wants to get her license to practice dentistry here in the United States. So she did everything that was needed in order to get the opportunity to go to dental school for the International Dentist Program. There are a bunch of those programs scattered all over different dental schools in the U.S. So she got accepted at USC, and right now it's becoming real. She's moving to California, to Los Angeles, to study at the University of Southern California. So right now I am a Trojan at heart. So that is basically what we are planning on doing. We leave soon, and we're going to drive all the way from Chicago to Cali, and I'm sure I'm going to bring a bunch of different stories from that road trip. Of course, there's going to be beer involved. Something cool that happened, and this is a story I want to share. In the past week, we had our very first food truck event. And of course, it was at a brewery called Pollyanna. I got there very unassuming. The entrance is small, but when you go in, this thing just expands and it has a beautiful patio, bunch of tables, communal tables. It was fantastic. Bunch of people enjoying the weather. It was unseasonably warm that day. And we sold out. I think we, underestimated the power of Pollyanna. They had a lot of people, and we cooked a lot of burgers. Great first event. And if this is how the season is going to look, hey, man, we couldn't be happier. So that was a lot of fun. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about what, in my opinion, is the essential equipment that every dentist needs, okay? And if you make a list of everything that you need, that list could be so long, it's almost like endless. But we want to focus on the things that will make your practice, more, I want to say, productive, predictable, consistent, right from the get-go. If you are a young dentist who's looking into starting up your own office, your own practice, or, whatever the case may be, these things that I'm going to be talking about today are things that are needed. You may have some of them already, but you might get a few tips here and there about equipment that you maybe didn't think about, but it's quite interesting to have. Now, I'm going to talk about 6 things that will make a difference in your everyday practice. 3 of them are what I consider obvious, that must-haves, and the other 3 are things that you may want to think about right now based upon what's going on in dentistry, right? But at the end, you will know how to set up your office to be, to run a smoother practice and to be more productive, right? But before we get into any of that, let's see what Jeremy, the producer, brought us today to open and enjoy. Let's go. All right, so today we are going to be drinking a beer from Guatemala. And this is the kind of thing that is super cool. We get, People come and visit us here from all over the place, and they bring us cool beers from their hometown, from their home country, and we get to enjoy them. So it is a unique position that we're in, where our followers or the people that know that we're doing this will bring us beer, and that's pretty awesome. So this one is called Don Nadie, which translate to no one. Don no one, all right? Or nobody, all right? So this is, the name of the brewery is Antigua Cerveza. And everybody here should know what cerveza means. Antigua Cerveza from Guatemala. This is an amber ale, and it is 5.5% of alcohol content. In the description from their website, it says simple without being pretentious, and it is discreetly sophisticated as it is adventurous. It is a mix of red malts and smooth hops that assure that you won't forget this encounter. Kind of poetic. I have had beers from this brewery before in a trip in Guatemala. I haven't had Don Nadia, though. I've had other ones. So, yes, now we're going to pour it. And, of course, we got a little bit of hate on the last pour. Not a problem. We're grown-ups here. And we understand that we need to do things professionally. And, of course, this glass is designed to hold this beer. Jeremy, the producer, what do you think about that pour? Right on. Seems interesting.
Sip, sip, sip.
I gotta tell you, Guatemala, good job. Good job. This is going to be a fantastic podcast episode. Let's go. When you talk about the equipment that you need to set up shop, right? To set up an office, a dental office. Let's say you're an associate and you're going to buy the office. It's offered to you as an associate. That office is already running. It's already got equipment. Or maybe you're going to start, you're going to start from scratch, and you have to invest in everything new, right? So how are you going to use it? It's going to depend on where you're standing right now, like what your situation is. And every situation is unique to each individual, to each clinician. And of course, you're going to need a chair, and you're going to need suction, and you're going to need, an overhead light, and you're going to need a stool for you, one for your assistant. You're going to need some digital radiograph system, and so much more, cameras, and you name it, right? You name it. Regardless of that, I believe that there are six pieces of equipment that are interesting. Again, 3 must-haves and 3 interesting to look at, research, and maybe invest to see how it goes. Let's talk about the must-haves. In today's world, restorative dentistry and also bread and butter dentistry, you're going to need a proper curing light.
Sip, sip, sip.
And your proper curing light should have the proper intensity, right? You need to make sure it's clean. You need to make sure it has the proper wavelength. And you need to make sure that light has the ability to light cure the materials that you're using. There are so many lights in the market, so many. And I'm not here to talk about a specific brand or a specific light, but I do have information that we have gathered in the lab and from people that I know that are extremely responsible when it comes to, checking lights and providing feedback and information. It can be tricky. You do not save money on your light. Okay, your light has to be something that is made by a reputable company, is a light that has been proven to work clinically, and a light that you can actually talk to people about, talk to your peers about it, and you can ask for their opinion on their current curing light. Of course, needs to be an LED light that has the proper wavelength and also the proper intensity. We prefer for the light to be plugged in, and I'm talking about here in the lab, because batteries die. Batteries die. And because batteries die, it is important that you are able to measure the intensity of your curing light after charge. If you start to see a decline in the output of your curing light right after charging it, that means that something is wrong with the battery, for sure. So in order to avoid that, having a light that you can plug in, it's important. There is an episode of this here podcast, episode number 27. We talk about curing lights. All right. The other thing is, number 2, magnification. Loupes. If you don't see it, you can't fix it. As simple as that. You need to see it in order to be able to fix it, to correct, to work more, what is the term? To be more accurate. You need to be able to see it. So magnification is of the essence. I believe that nowadays, all dental schools, most dental schools, if not all, require magnification to dental students, okay? And that is a good thing. Is the dental student going to invest in the best pair of magnification loupes out there? I don't know. But it is important to think about magnification as an extension of your eyesight. So you need to have the best possible magnification system out there. A good pair of loupes will cause less strain on your eyesight. I know it's kind of like, this one, it's $600 compared to the ones that are $2,000. It's like, man, that's a lot of money. Well, you need to think about how much does your eyesight cost, especially for a dentist. You need to take care of them. So having a good pair of loupes is always important. I've never used loupes, Rolando. Start with 3.5, 2.5, 3.5, and then you start moving up, ramping up, okay? Little by little. At the beginning, you're going to feel a little dizzy. You might get a headache, but as you get used to it, it's going to be a point where you will not be able to work without loupes. I have seen these loupes now that they tend to be, instead of being straight, they come out a little bit and then go straight down. And they're supposed to generate less strain on your neck and on your position. Is this a good thing? Well, I've seen people using it and they love them. I have not used them personally. I've used regular loupes, and I don't know how these actually work. I've been told that there is kind of like a learning curve when you get these new systems. However, they seem to do the job when it comes to maintaining posture and the strain on your neck. Things to look for. If you have a good pair of loupes, awesome. The third thing that is a must-have is an electric motor. A lot of people, when they go to dental school, and this is people from all over the world,
Sip, sip.
they don't have the opportunity to work with an electric motor. They work with a regular handpiece that you connect to your water and air connection, your hose, and that's how it works. Companies like NSK have been doing handpieces for a long time, and you have a wide variety of different brands of handpieces. Great. An electric motor provides you with a few things that regular handpieces won't. First of all, less noise, which is important because people get stressed out with the noise. Second thing is that electrical handpieces provide more torque, meaning that when you're prepping, you can have a better control of the burr as you're prepping. You have much, much better control. So your preparations can be done with more precision. Okay, you're more precise when you're prepping. When you use a regular handpiece, you got to be more careful. Maybe you are able to prep faster, but that doesn't necessarily translate to prepping better. Anyone that has used a regular handpiece and then they use an electric motor, very rare that they go back. You don't go back. The other thing an electric motor has is that you can go low speed and you can go high speed without having to change contrangles or without having to have two different hand pieces. You just have one, and you can go high speed or low speed. Looking into an electric motor is something that everybody should do because it does make a difference. When you're prepping, it does make a difference, on an impact on the control that you have when you're prepping. And it's just way, way better than using a regular handpiece. Maybe some of you graduated, I don't know, 5 years ago. And digital dentistry has been around for a little bit. So, you were exposed to it early on. But some of us have been around for a little bit longer, and we actually saw how digital dentistry became popular, and now it has almost become the norm of how to do restorative dentistry. It's all digitized now. I feel that impression material companies are probably hurting because scanners are a thing. Should you get a scanner? Well, think about this. What kind of lab are you using? And I'm sure there are some labs that will take the impression, or if not all the labs will take, the impression with silicone or whatever material you're using. But if the lab has the ability to do digital dentistry through milling, they will definitely prefer that you scan and you send them the file, in an email. You can't beat that. You can scan multiple times. If you take an impression with the silicone material, maybe you can get 2 or 3 models out of that. If you need to repeat an impression, that's complicated, right? Because you got to put the packing cord again. If you're using packing cord, you got to, patient may not want to do it, gag reflex. But when you're scanning, it's not that difficult if you know what you're doing. And it's very, very simple. And you can check the quality of the scan immediately. You don't have to, pour any gypsum or anything. You can see it immediately on your computer.
Sip, sip, sip.
Right? On your monitor. And then you take that file and you send it to the lab. And then the lab is going to receive that, it's going to open it, and it's going to do with it whatever is it that you want them to do with it. They're going to design the restoration, they're going to, mill the restoration, they're going to print the model, and then they send you that printed, the restoration and the model, in a matter of days, faster than if you are doing regular impressions. So this is something that, is it necessary? I think it's becoming more and more necessary. And now, if you are not willing to invest in a scanner, now you need to look for a lab that will take the impression. A lot of them do, but if I were a lab and I had milling machines, I'd be like, come on, man, just get a scanner. So a scanner is something that you want to look at, especially in today's world. The other thing that you want to look into is a 3D printer. And some of you that are listening to this might think, well, why would I want to print any restorations? I'm not saying that you should print final restorations with a 3D printer. And I think we've had conversations about this. But I do believe that if you want to print your models, you can do that with the 3D printer. If you want to print certain appliances, you can do it with a 3D printer. If you want to print surgical guides, you can do it with a 3D printer. If you want to print some really accurate provisionals, you can do it with a 3D printer. But in order to do that, you need a scanner.
Sip, sip, sip.
Okay? This is digital dentistry, and we are in the digital dentistry era. Whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not, we are in that era. You need a scanner, you need a printer if you want to be part of the digital dentistry revolution. Let me put it that way, okay? You can stay old school, and, you can send a comment in on our YouTube publication saying, well, I've been doing impression for 30 years. Well, yeah, I understand that, but, nowadays, the technology is so good and interesting that if you think about 10 years ago, you couldn't do a surgical guide on a 3D printer and using a 3D printer. Now you can. You are not able to do a very accurate provisional. Now you can. And there are talks about final restoratives with 3D printers. It's awesome. Dentistry is becoming more technology driven, and if you understand the technology, it's going to become easier. During the midwinter meeting, there's a company, this is not an endorsement or anything, it's called Sprint Ray. Their booth was always busy. We went to Lab Day here in Chicago, and everyone who had a 3D printer was busy. Every company. They were busy. Why? Because there is interest. Why? Because it is what people want to do. Digital dentistry and 3D printing. So I want you guys to think about that, okay? It's something interesting, something to look into. The last thing I want to talk about is, do you need to buy a Sandblaster? That is the third piece of equipment that will be good to think about getting. Do you need a Sandblaster? Well, you need to ask yourself a few questions. Are you doing zirconia? And then the answer is yes. Are you doing metal? Yes. Are you doing composite? Are you doing 3D printed resins? Yes. And then you need a Sandblaster. Some of you might think, oh, the lab does the sandblasting for me. Okay. That's fine and dandy, but if you think about the bonding procedure, bonding requires mechanical retention and also requires chemical interaction. Who's responsible to creating that? The dentist. So if you have a Sandblaster, you control the bonding procedure. You control it 100%. Because you can control the pressure, you can control the distance, you can control the type of powder that you're going to use, the size of the particle of the powder. All of that you can control. And by controlling that, that means that you can actually be more precise when performing the bonding to that specific substrate. So I think that anyone that is doing zirconia or metal or composite or resin should have a Sandblaster. This is just for sandblasting. If you add water to it, now we're talking about doing intraoral sandblasting, which opens up such a way more opportunities. But when it comes to bonding, just a regular Sandblaster, one of those micro etchers, that will do the trick. Something to think about. We're going to wrap it up. Listen, it's not about just having cool tech. Cool tech is cool, but it's not about having the tech and then, bragging about having the tech. It's about making your workflow smoother. So, your life is easier. And also, having your patients, live a better experience. Think about taking impressions, with a tray and material and all that fun stuff, and compare it to scanning. It's a little different now. However, when you're considering purchasing any equipment, you need to make sure that you have a plan on the training that you need for you and your staff. Who's going to do that training? How much time it's going to take you to learn how to use this, piece of equipment accordingly. Also, you need to make sure to integrate this to your everyday practice. So it's acquiring the equipment, getting the proper training and learning how to use it, and then how to properly plug it into your daily practice. Plug and play doesn't happen. It doesn't happen, at least not at the beginning. There's always a learning curve. Okay, so it's not that you bought a 3D printer and now you're going to have all your provisional problems solved. That's not how it works. You need to learn how to use it. You need to be trained on how to use it. You need somebody to guide you in your journey to achieve that goal. So you need to look for the best training opportunities out there regarding that specific piece of equipment. And most of the time, the manufacturer or whoever is selling you the equipment will provide some kind of training. You need to do that. You need to train your staff. You need to be responsible. Again, having cool tech is cool. Properly using it, different story. It requires a grown-up. Okay? I'm just saying. Let's go. All right, so our beer review for Don Nadie out of Guatemala, Antigua Cerveza Brewery from Guatemala. What do I think about this beer? Well, let me tell you something. It is an ale, but you can definitely sense that it's craft. It's got a bitter taste to it. It's got a little bit of a kick in the. You can feel it, and it's definitely very, very enjoyable. It's not super bitter, but it's not supposed to be. It's not supposed to be, right? Did it match the brewery description? Yes, simple without being pretentious and discreetly sophisticated as it is adventurous. It's funny because that description does sound a little bit pretentious, but, maybe it's the Google Translate or the website. I don't know. I really don't know. Is it hoppy? No, it is not. It is not hoppy. But it is. It has an interesting bitterness to it. From 1 to 5, I will give this guy a 3.9. A 3.9.
Sip, 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 sip.
You can definitely chug a few of these without feeling, too guilty, and not feeling, too drunk. Not feeling too drunk. It is a nice beer. Good job, Guatemala. Appreciate it. All right. Question number 1 from Dr. Deirdre Rocha. Now, remember, you can send your questions via email, bondingandbeer@gmail.com, or you can find us on Instagram and send us the questions there at Bonding and Beer. Question from Deirdre Rocha. What procedures benefit the most after purchasing a scanner? Anything that has to do with restorative dentistry, specifically indirect restorative dentistry. Scanning of a crown, scanning of a bridge, scanning of an onlay, scanning of a veneer, or multiple restorations. That's where it's going to benefit you. But also, you can do scanning for dentures. You can do scanning, which is restorative dentistry too, You can do scanning for certain appliances like night guards, surgical guides. A scanner is definitely going to make your life easier. It's going to make your life better. Something to definitely think about. If you don't have a scanner, you should. Question number 2 from Dr. Roderick Cannon. What are the most common mistakes when it comes to sandblasting? Using the wrong powder, using the wrong powder particle size, using the wrong pressure, holding it too far away, or holding it too close. It's not rocket science, but it does require a little bit of practice. It does have a little bit of a learning curve. I would say the 3 most common mistakes is wrong powder particle size, and wrong pressure. When it comes to zirconia, we recommend aluminum oxide, 50 micron particle size at 40 psi. Will this work for metal? Yes. Will this work for composite? Yes. Will this work for 3-print resins? Yes. So that is our standard setup. But it's based upon what the zirconia needs, which happens to work for other substrates. Okay? Question number 3 from Desiree Burgess. Will owning all this technology actually make my life easier or just more complicated? At the beginning could be overwhelming. Having to go through the learning process can be overwhelming. And you might feel like, oh my God, what did I get into this? This is so complicated, right? And, complications come from lack of knowledge. But once you learn, once you understand how it works, it will make your life easier. Once you learn how to scan, you're going to scan so many times, and you're going to get it right. And it's going to basically, whatever amount of time you had to invest at the beginning, upfront, to learn how to use the product, you're going to get, tenfold in benefits. Yes, at the beginning, it could be cumbersome. It could be complicated. It could be overwhelming. But the benefit is, you can't, it's way, way more than the pain that you're going to suffer for, through the learning experience. All right. That about wraps it up for today's episode. Be sure to like, to comment, to subscribe, and to follow. Leave a nice comment to Jeremy, the producer.
Sip, 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 sip.
All right. Have a beer. Maybe two. Thank you for tuning in to Bonding and Beer. My name is Rolando. This is Jeremy, the producer, and we will see you next episode. Let's go. If you don't like something, just keep scrolling. No one is asking you to listen to 30 minutes of me ranting. Those of you guys who are subscribers, who are listening, who watch our videos, thank you so much. Jeremy and I are doing this because of you guys. All right? I just wanted to share that.